Hi there, thank you so much for joining me today. This video is another ranking video. I put up a ranking my blushes video about a month ago, and today we're going to be talking about highlighters. This video idea has been floating around for a couple months now, and I love joining in on the fun. It's just a really great way for me to share certain portions of my collection in greater detail, and also just tell you which ones I prefer, what formulas, what colors I prefer, what I prioritize when it comes to looking at which ones are my top favorites. If you can hear any background noise, music, or television or anything, I have downstairs neighbors. It's almost as if they know when I'm trying to film. Like I mentioned in my blush ranking video, all of these highlighters are highlighters that I like. If I didn't like them, I would declutter them or pass them on to someone else. So these are kind of like the best of the best in my opinion. So there's nothing in here that I absolutely hate. So just keep that in mind. It's a little bit biased in that way. These are all still good highlighters. I do have 19 separate highlighters. A couple of them are from duos or palettes or etc. But I'm just counting them each as their own highlighter, and that way I can better rank each one individually. So let's start with number 19, my least favorite of all the ones I own. It's from Wet n Wild. It's the Wet n Wild Mega Glow Hello Halo Liquid Highlighter. This one is in the shade Halo Goodbye. It has a little bit of a pinky undertone, and it has a little doe foot applicator, and it's a liquid highlighter. I think it's a pretty color. I was expecting it to be a little bit more metallic, more like the Coverfx custom drops. I have one in Moonlight that I'll be talking about later on. The formula is a little bit sticky. It doesn't really dry down. It does leave a nice beautiful sheen on the skin, but it's just not as intense as I thought it would be. The pink undertone is nice, but I don't know, when you blend it out on your skin, when you put it on top of foundation or anything, it kind of blends itself out and doesn't have this type of sheen. This is a very heavy swatch and it kind of stays sticky. It doesn't really set on its own. And I don't know, just something about it feels heavy on the skin. So this is definitely my least favorite. It's still pretty. I might just use it on my collarbones during the summertime when I'm wearing more low-cut tops. But yeah, I mean, maybe in the future I could see myself decluttering this. The next one might be a big surprise to a lot of people because it's a very popular, very well-known highlighter, probably one of the original highlighters that really made blinding highlights very popular, and it's the Balms Mary Lou-Manzier. This is one of my oldest highlighters, and I've actually used it so much that I've hit pan on it. This has a gold champagne undertone. It's incredibly metallic and soft, and there was a time where it was one of the few highlighters that I owned, and so I did wear it all the time. I can't believe I would wear this like bright ass highlighter to work. It's this top one right here. If you can see, it's definitely a lot more gold than the highlighter from Wet n Wild. And it is really, really pretty. It's just incredibly blinding. It's a very strong highlight, and it's just not really my cup of tea anymore. It's not something that I would wear on a regular basis. I still keep it because I enjoy it and I love the formula, and even after having it for all these years, it's still in really great shape. Just not really what I'm going for anymore when it comes to personal makeup preferences. The next highlighter, number 17, is one that is a lot newer in my collection, and I do enjoy using it. It's just, I guess, maybe a little underwhelming given how much it was hyped up before I bought it, and it's the Pur Afterglow highlighter. This one is not as blinding as the Mary Lou-Manzier. It has a similar formula where it is very creamy. It has a very similar undertone, but it's a little bit more powdery, a little bit more dry, and can look like it sits on top of the skin a little bit more. You really have to work it into the skin. And it has a very similar undertone to Mary Lou-Manzier. It has like that yellow gold type of shift. It's a little bit lighter, and it's not nearly as metallic. It can look really pretty on the skin. It's just more yellow than I expected it to be. And before I bought it, it was really hyped up to be this amazing hidden gem, and it looked amazing on all skin types, and it had this beautiful natural sheen. It was just the perfect highlighter, and it just, after hearing all that and then actually seeing it perform on my skin, I was a little bit underwhelmed, and so that's why it's at number 17. The next one on the list, number 16, is the Laura Geller Universal Filter Finish Powder. This isn't technically a highlighter, but I use it as a highlighter. It is a multicolored powder that whenever you mix it together kind of has like a cool toned white type of color. This is definitely like a natural highlighter that can be built up. It's not a blinding highlight by any means. The texture isn't super creamy, and I do like it, but when I compare it to other newer highlighters in my collection, this isn't like an absolute favorite. It is something that I keep around, and every time I bring it out, I do enjoy using it, but it's just not something that I find myself reaching over other highlighters in my collection. Number 15 is a highlighter from Colourpop. It's from the Disney Villains collection. I don't know if this is available anymore. And it's the one with Maleficent on it. It's in the shade Mistress of All Evil. And I think it's still technically their Super Shock formula, but instead of being in a little container like this in a little jar, it's actually pressed into a pan. And I give this massive kudos for the packaging. I freaking love this. Maleficent is one of my favorite Disney characters, so it kind of made me really want to buy this over other characters from the collection. And this color is really pretty. It still has that really creamy texture, and it can be incredibly blinding if you want it to be. And the undertone is really nice for my skin tone. It's just light enough to work without being too deep or too gold that looks like really fake on my skin tone. And you can blend it out to make it a little bit more natural, but it's really one of those noticeable highlighters. Like, it's not gonna look like a natural sheen by any means. And the reason I have this so low on my list is 100% because there are pieces of glitter in it. And it's something that's very apparent when you wear it on your cheeks. I don't know if maybe I could use a different brush to kind of keep the sparkles from getting on my face, but just something about that formula. It's very, very glittery, very sparkly. It does look so nice on my cheeks, and I love wearing it. Kind of gives like a wet look on your cheeks. If this didn't have any glitter in it, it'd probably be one of my top favorite highlighters. Number 14 is a highlighter that I still really enjoy. I've talked about it in favorites videos before. I think it's a beautiful formula. I really enjoy using it, but I think just the undertone and the depth of the shade is something that I don't really love anymore on my skin personally. It's from Ofra. It's the Pillow Talk highlighter. I have raved about this before. You guys know I love a good pinky highlighter, and I just find that as of late when I wear it, it looks a little bit too icy on my skin, and that's just not really the vibe I'm going for. It was last year. I didn't mind a nice icy pink highlight on my cheeks then, but nowadays I'm going for maybe more golds or champagnes, or if I am going for something more cool toned like what I'll be talking about later, it's not so icy on the cheeks. If you can see, it's the one on top here. It is very icy. It has more of a white base, so if you are someone with a deeper skin tone, I don't think this is going to look the most natural on you. It might pull a little bit ashy, but luckily Ofra has a really great shade range for highlighters, and so if you have a deeper skin tone, I'm sure you can find a shade that better suits you. This is one of those products that would have been higher on the list if I had done this video maybe a year or two ago, but right now it's just not where I'm at, and as a result it's lower on the list. Numbers 13 and 12 are from an ABH Glow Kit. I believe they're both from the Gleam Glow Kit, which was discontinued a while ago, and I have the shades Crushed Pearl and Starburst. If you can see, they're both pinky highlighters. One is a little bit lighter than the other one. I love the formula of these. They're very smooth and soft, and they can be really built up on the cheek, or you can kind of take them down a notch if you blend them in such a way. They do blend nicely into the skin. The texture is really nice. It doesn't emphasize anything on your cheeks. I do really love these shades, and I still reach for them from time to time. I'm gonna say number 13 is Crushed Pearl, just because it does have a little bit icier of a color, and then Starburst is the next one up. I don't know how well you're going to be able to pick these up on camera, but the bottom one is Crushed Pearl, and the next one up is Starburst. If you can see, they're very, very similar. They have the same formula, the same finish, but Crushed Pearl is just a little bit lighter, a little bit more of a white base. And as a result, I don't reach for Crushed Pearl as often as I do Starburst. And these are two really, really good highlighters. Every time I pull them out and use them, I kick myself for not reaching for them more. Sometimes they get kind of pushed to the back of the drawer because it is part of a big palette, and so I don't see the actual product like I do for a lot of other highlighters in my collection. And sometimes my newer highlighters are just more exciting to use, and so I pull for those more than I do these, but these are fantastic. If you can get your hands on one of these ABH Glow Kits, I definitely recommend it. I think it's a fantastic deal. It's $40 for 4 giant highlighters, and you can actually take them out. They have little things right here. They're magnetic, so you can put them in Z palettes. I think it's really great for makeup artists as well because you get a lot of different undertones. I would definitely recommend trying these out. Number 11 is another Laura Geller highlighter. This one is in the shade Peach Glow. It's from their Baked Gelato Swirl collection, and I have another shade from this line that I'll talk about later. I prefer the color from that one over this one, but this one is so pretty and I love it, especially in the summertime. It has obviously a peachy undertone, given that the shade name is called Peach Glow, and these highlighters are just so smooth and buttery, and I really love how they look on my skin. It's the one at the top right here. The formula for these is just so smooth and buttery, and that baked gelato type of formula is something I prefer when it comes to highlighters, just because they look really nice on the skin and they're really easy to sheer out or build up depending on what I want that day. The Peach Glow one I just don't reach for as much as the other shade that I'll be talking about a little bit later, but I do really love this highlighter. It's beautiful. Every time I reach for it, I don't regret it. The next highlighter I actually don't have on me. I was doing a friend's makeup for their wedding, and this highlighter ended up getting in one of my friend's bags, and I just haven't seen her yet to get it back. It's from Coverfx, and it's the powder highlighter. It's in the shade Moonlight, and it's a travel size. And I heard really good things about this highlighter because it is very natural, leaves a really beautiful sheen on the skin. The formula is really soft and not chunky at all, and it doesn't emphasize texture on your skin, and it does leave a really beautiful, natural, lit from within type of glow. I definitely agree. I think this is a beautiful formula, and it's something that I think I might consider taking with me to Italy just because it looks really nice in photographs, it looks nice in person as well, and it is a travel size, so it's a little bit easier to fit in my makeup bag because I do have to travel light. All in all, this deserves the number 10 spot. It's a beautiful product, and I could see myself using this up someday. Number 9 is another Colourpop highlighter. It's Lunch Money, and it's the Super Shock Cheek in the pearlized version. And this one doesn't have any glitter in it, which I think is why I love it. I used to have Flexitarian, and I liked the color, except for it did pull a little bit icy on me sometimes when I had fake tanner on, and it had a ton of glitter in it, which I didn't like. This one, if you can see, I've used a ton out of it already. I think this is as close as I would ever get to using like a matte highlight. It's not 100% matte, but I wouldn't say it's shimmery or gleamy at all. Is that the right word? Gleamy? You can see it, it's on the bottom of my hand right there. It has a really nice sheen to it without being over the top. I can really use this like all over my face pretty much because it doesn't have a really big glare on it or anything. I use it on the top of the cheekbones, on top of my nose, on my cupid's bow, under my brow bone, on the sides of my forehead a little bit. I can use it on my collarbones, and it's never gonna look like too much. It's never gonna look overdone. And because it has a really nice creamy texture, it just melts in with the skin. Perfect for summertime, also really great for the winter time when my skin's a little bit drier. My next highlighter is one that you've heard me talk about a lot because it's in one of my current project pans. It's the Wet n Wild Blossom Glow Highlighter. I'm in the process of using this up, so I have hit pan on it. This one's kind of like a shifty highlight, almost like a duochrome, but not like a heavy duochrome like a lot of eyeshadows are. It feels kind of like a baked gelato type of product, and it is very creamy and pigmented. It has a very noticeable pinky undertone, but when I say duochrome, it has like a white pink base, and then it shifts into a slightly darker pink. So it adds a lot of really nice dimension on the cheeks and just looks very unique. I love the price, I love the formula, and this is one of my top highlighters, so I don't mind panning it because it's something that I don't have any problem reaching for on a regular basis. The next highlighter is also something I have in a project pan, and it's the Charlotte Tilbury Film Star Bronze and Glow Duo. I'm of course talking about the highlighter side. This one has more of a gold undertone, and it is less creamy, I would say, than the Wet n Wild one, just because it doesn't have that big gelato type of formula, but it is still very, very pretty. This one has more of a gold undertone, but it is light enough to work on my skin tone. It is light enough to still show a highlight on my cheeks, and it doesn't have like a weird cast where when I turn my head it's actually darker than my skin. It doesn't do anything like that. It's one of my more expensive highlighters and one of my oldest ones as well. This is a really beautiful formula. I like using this on people of different age groups because I don't think that it emphasizes texture. I think you can add a little bit or really build it up if you want. I think it's a beautiful formula and it deserves to be in the top 10 of my favorite highlighters. The next one is another pinky highlight, and it's the other Laura Geller Baked Gelato Swirl highlighter that I have. This one is in the Charming Pink version. It's the same formula and the same level of depth as Peach Glow. This one just has a cool toned pink undertone, and I also think it's a little bit more white based, so it definitely has more of a reflection on my skin. And this is so beautiful. I love this highlighter. Whenever I do want a pinky highlight that isn't too pink, I definitely reach for this one a lot. I love the formula. I also love how small and compact it is, and I just don't hear people talking about these highlighters anymore, but they're still really awesome. Number 5 is the other liquid highlighter that I have in my collection. It's from Coverfx, and it is the Custom Enhancer Drops in the shade Moonlight. I only have a travel size. I've used up a travel size in the shade before. I have used these in tutorials. I've talked about them in a summer favorites videos. I think these are just such a beautiful, beautiful formula. This is what it looks like on my hand. Incredibly, incredibly pigmented, very metallic. It can be sheared out, of course, to not be so harsh, but it definitely leaves a very noticeable sheen on the skin, and I just think it's so pretty, especially in the summertime when I'm going for that super glowy look. I like this a lot better than the Wet n Wild liquid highlighter because it dries down. It doesn't feel sticky on my skin, and it works really well on top of foundation without lifting the product, and it's something that I can really build up the intensity if I want to. I can't really do that with the Wet n Wild one. This has been one of my favorite highlighters for a very long time, and I just think it's amazing. If you can get your hands on a little travel size, this will last you forever. We are now in the top 4. I think number 4 will be a big surprise to a lot of people who watch my videos regularly, just because I don't think I've ever actually talked about this in a video, but it's in my top 4. The main reason for that is because it is one of the newer highlighters in my collection, and I recently purchased it right before the Wet n Wild controversy where they were selling in China but not telling people about it, and so I'm not really keen on talking about Wet n Wild in general on my channel. So as much as I want to sing the praises of this product and tell you to go out and buy it, I don't really think I'll be personally purchasing from Wet n Wild in the future, but that doesn't mean it's not still my number 4 favorite highlighter. I'm talking about the Wet n Wild Loose Highlighting Powder. It doesn't actually say a shade name on it that I know of. It just says Mega Glow Loose Highlighting Powder, so I don't know what shade it is, but I'm assuming it's the lightest one. And if you can even see in the bottle, it's just the perfect champagne gold for light skin. And it is a loose powder. There's a ton of this in here. I don't think I could ever use up this whole thing, even if I use it all over my body every single day. So this is what it looks like swatched on my hand. It is just the perfect champagne color. It's a very finely milled powder, so it doesn't look dry or cakey on your skin. You only need the tiniest bit. You can sheer it out if you want, but you can really build it up to pack a punch as well. And I just think it's such a beautiful highlighter. I heard a lot of people rave about this whenever this first came out. I don't know if this is part of a specific collection. I don't even know if it's available anymore, but I saw it on sale and I picked it up probably towards the end of April. If anyone knows of a cruelty-free dupe for this type of shade and for this level of pigmentation, please let me know. Number 3 is very similar to the Wet n Wild one, but it's just slightly darker. It's from Mel Cosmetics, and it is the Digital Dust Highlighter in the shade Stargazer. I think this is the lightest shade that they offer, and I picked this up in IMATS when I was in Toronto last year, and I've already worn away the beautiful design that was on the top. I think this is a gorgeous color. If you can see, it has a very similar finish to the Wet n Wild one, but it's just a little bit deeper, a little bit closer to my skin tone, and therefore it looks a tiny bit more natural, but is still a pretty blinding highlight. I love the texture of this. It's a little bit drier of a formula, which I'm usually not a fan of. It's not creamy necessarily like I prefer in highlighters, but it's not dusty. It doesn't look powdery or dry on the skin. It doesn't emphasize texture. I think it's just a really pretty highlighter. It is very expensive for what it is, so I don't think you need to run out and grab it. I think you could find other alternatives for this that aren't like $38, but I think it's a fantastic highlighter and it definitely deserves the number 3 spot. The next one is one that you've seen me use in tutorials and talk about all the time. It is one of my favorite highlighters, and it's one that I've only picked up a few months ago. It's from Becca, and it is the Berlin Girl Glow Highlighter. I think it's still available on the website, but it is one of those limited types of highlighters, so I don't think it'll be around forever. So if you do want to pick it up, I would recommend doing it sooner than later. I've actually used this so much that I've already worn away the pattern that was on the top of the product, and it was a pretty thick pattern. Like, it wasn't easy to work through, but I've already gotten rid of it. If you can see right here in the middle of my hand, it has a little bit more of like a beigey type of base, and then it has blue and pink and purpley reflections to it. The best way I can explain it, and the way that I've heard Kitsch Snitch explain it, is it's cool toned without being icy. And I just think it's such a unique and beautiful color. I love the formula. I love the packaging. I actually purchased a backup of this because it is limited edition, and I really feel I could use this up if I use it as regularly as I do already. And so I did kind of go against my own personal rule that I set for myself, and I bought a backup of it. It's just one of the most unique and beautiful highlighters I've ever used. Every time I hear people talking about it, they love it, they rave about it. It's a very popular product when people get their hands on it. So I hope Becca listens and makes this a part of their permanent line. I think that this is a really gorgeous and unique formula, and I really think it brings something new to the table other than what Becca already offers. And the very last one, once again, I don't think it will be a surprise to most people. I do talk about this highlighter a lot. It is the Physicians Formula Shimmer Strips. This one is in the shade Warm Nude. It is a multicolored highlighter, and I focus more on the lighter side of the highlighter, which is why you can see it's very worn down. I'm probably close to hitting pan. Swatches probably won't be the best because depending on where you focus your finger, it's going to look different because there are so many different color options in here. I love putting this on other people because I can make it a little bit darker or lighter depending on what the skin tone I'm working with is. So I don't have to go out and buy a bunch of different highlighters in different skin tones. I can just reach for this one and focus on a different part of the pan. So if you are someone who is a budding makeup artist and you want something that's very affordable that's going to work on multiple skin types, I think this is really nice. It's a beautiful formula. I've had it for years. This is one of my oldest highlighters. The formula hasn't changed. It's still buttery and soft and looks beautiful on the skin. It's right here on the top. It might look like nothing special to you, but I think that's why I love it so much. It just looks great every single time. It's one of those no fuss type of highlighters. I put a little bit on my cheekbone and it looks fantastic. I think the undertones work perfectly for my skin tone, and I can adjust it depending on if I'm wearing a lot of bronzer, if I have a little bit of sun or fake tan on. Every time I look in the mirror when I'm wearing this, I feel like I'm having a great skin day. So this without a doubt is number one. It's my favorite highlighter. I reach for this all the time, and I think I'm very close to hitting pan. I just think it's a beautiful product, and if you haven't tried it, I definitely recommend checking it out. So those are all of my highlighters ranked. Did any of my choices surprise you? I think if I were to do this with any of my other products, I'd probably do it with eyeshadow palettes, but I think that would be very difficult. Blushes and highlighters were really easy for me to do, but any of my other makeup categories I think would be more difficult, so I'm not sure if I would do any videos like this anymore. But in the meantime, that's everything I have. Thank you so much for joining me, and I'll see you in my next video.